Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, yesterday's video, now today's video, I think I'm getting a pretty clear picture of what Republicans, MAGA conservatives, far right, the far right, what they are doing, what's going on here. I think some of the worst problems, the worst ills, the scariest things going on in the country. And they take these things, the far right, MAGA Republicans, and they blame it on people that they dislike, that they hate, that they fear. Yesterday's video, I talked about this. And the thing is, nobody must be taking the time to actually look up the facts, the real facts. You know, when I look things up, I look at both sides. I look at I look through 10 or 12 different things that pop up, and you know, some of them come from church-orientated websites. Some come from far-leaning left. Some come from far-leaning right. And I go through them all. And then you could weed out what the truth is. And that's what I usually do. I'll have links down below to everything I'm talking about today. Yesterday, I talked about how there's been flyers been put out in Connecticut here blaming the LGBTQ community for one of the most hideous things that happens in society with the underage kids. When in fact, it's usually friends of the family, 60% of the time, or 20% of the time, the actual family members that are doing this stuff, not some drag person reading a story in a library. That's the truth of it. Okay, today, what if I told you this? What if I've been clean and sober, I say it all the time, October 23rd, 2006, for 16 years and about 8 months. What if I told you this? It's not. I just recently discovered it's not my fault at all. I'm not an addict. I was poisoned. You know, I was poisoned by people, and therefore it's not. None of this is my fault. You know, I would have my whole life. I would have been an upstanding person with no problems if I hadn't been poisoned. That's the problem. So now I must be able to be. I could drink. I could use prescription drugs. I could smoke a little reefer. No big deal, because I'm not an addict. It's somebody else's fault. I was poisoned. I hate this word. I hate this word, poisoned. And this is why I'm bringing this up. Ron DeSantis, again. And this is a Lulu. Another story came out about the Navy a couple days ago, and I wanted to talk about that. Ron DeSantis talks about using the Navy and the Coast Guard to blocking ports in Mexico, blocking the ports of another country, and using our Navy and Coast Guard to do it. Because precursors are coming from other countries, and they want to block this going into Mexico. Now, I want to talk about how this is ridiculous on so many levels. And again, the links will be down below. If you look this up on any fact-based website, you will see the truth of how illegal substances come into the country. They come in, the vast majority of illegal substances that come into this country come in through established ports, with cars, trucks, buses. A large amount come through the United States Postal Service. I talked about a video. I actually was involved in this. And that's how, I won't get too into it now, but that's how I was involved with the U.S. Postal Service. Okay, so besides this Navy thing, which I'll talk about in a second, now he's come up with this. The link will be down below for this. You could actually hear them saying this out loud. He's talking about how ranchers and American citizens, police, whatever, open season, they have the right, if somebody cuts a hole in a border wall, and this is his own words, and comes in with a backpack, okay? I think these guys have been watching too many movies, like The Marksman, Liam Neeson. In this movie, that's what happens. This is a movie. It's fiction. This whole thing was created for a vehicle for Liam Neeson, because if they did a movie on how drugs really came into the country, Liam Neeson wouldn't have a movie. It's a movie. It's fiction. Okay, so he talks about if somebody cuts a hole in a border wall, and he says this, and this is the part that just freaks me out. It scares me. Somebody comes in with a backpack, because he says backpacks must be smuggling. Well, then they're going to end up stone cold dead. Stone cold dead. We Americans, we have every right to just take them out right on spot. They cut a hole in the border wall. Oh, and of course, he uses the word poison. They cut a hole in the border wall, because they're coming here to poison good, upstanding American citizens who don't have any drug problems whatsoever. And they're bringing this stuff in a backpack. Then Americans have every right to make them stone cold dead. Oh my God. Okay? Unless you have x-ray vision, how? First of all, like I said, it's a movie. Most of this stuff isn't smart. It's not. It does not come through vast open areas carried by backpacks. Look it up. Look it up yourselves. This is fiction. Okay? Now I picture this. I picture like a mother and her two kids. I picture this is the first thing that popped into my mind. A little girl with her like Hello Kitty backpack. All right? They find a way in. They come in and then Mr. Rancher thinks, yo, we got a backpack. We got a smuggler. Bam. You know, like an 8-year-old Mexican girl with a My Kitty backpack. Oh, Ron DeSantis said, backpack, coming here to poison Americans. Every right, make them stone. You know, are you free? He said this. All right. Like I said, the links are down below. I've talked about this over and over and over. The Cato Institute, I'm not very familiar. I'm not sure if this is left or right, but they have some statistics down below. And fentanyl smuggled into this country, it's smuggled by Americans for Americans using 98.9% all American funding to bring it in here. I've talked about this before. The reason the drugs are coming here is because millions of addicts, people with the disease of addiction, want them. There's a demand and there's money. And that's why it comes. It's not being smuggled here to poison Americans. There are pushers standing on street corners. Let me tell you this. Me and every single addict, I can't think of one single person I've talked to that's also involved in the disease of addiction, had a pusher come up to him and say, okay, here you go. The first one's free. Just try it. You know, like in the movies. Never seen that. Whenever it's happened, whenever anybody first starts, it's another addict. It's somebody that's already using, saying, hey, you know, like a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend, a brother, a sister, already using, saying, you know, here, try this. Because that's how it happened to me, and that's how it's happened to every single addict I know. You know, so if you're going to talk about poisoning, it's other Americans that are poisoning Americans here. That's the truth of the matter here. Okay, let's talk about this naval thing really quick. I don't know why he said precursors. Precursors is mostly used when you're talking about ephedrine. Ephedrine is used to make methamphetamine. Methamphetamine could be made anywhere in the entire world. Yes, most of the ephedrine does come from China, but it can also be shipped to anywhere in the world. A lot of these drug cartels originally are from South America. Okay, so Ron DeSantis blocks ports in Mexico. Is he going to block the ports all the way down when they just simply move to another port? Which is why wouldn't they just move to another port in Central America or South America? Is he going to use our entire Navy to block all the ports all the way down? It doesn't make any sense. I can understand how Americans don't want drugs just freely coming into the country, but you can't blame this on people just because you don't like them, because they're brown and you don't trust them. You have to look at this logically and how it's being done and for what reasons, like supply and demand. They can move these production facilities anywhere in the country. None of this makes sense. And this is the thing too. Like I said, when I got into recovery, the first thing was admitting my life had become uncontrollable, that I was an addict, that I had the disease of addiction. If you're telling people that they're being poisoned, that it's not their fault, you're doing a disservice to millions of Americans that are struggling with addiction. The links will be down below. Ron DeSantis, full of it, just ridiculous ideas. Have a good Thursday.